a bullet. I mean, that was an alternative title of this show. America dodged a bullet. Believe you me, it
Big
was
time, yeah.
right on the precipice. So this is a great relief, actually. All the way. And because remember, I've said in the past that I've always liked Trump, but the thing is that if he ever got back in again, would he be tough enough? I want to see him do 10 times what he did before. Certain terrible, weaknesses in the past, I thought. And now it looks like he's right on the ball. And we have to give him the credit that he's also assembled a very, very good team of professionals around him. And they're not from the swamp. They're not these, Boltons and other people that he had before. He trusted. Somewhere he's done so much homework that he is already up to speed on who to get. And so far, it looks good. Then that shows a learning curve. And that's what we want in office. We want people who started off as one thing and who may have even been contradictory in the past, but then they've changed. See, Trump is being beaten up by some people who say, oh, well, he said one thing in the beginning and now he's saying something else again, as if that's a bad thing. You mean that what, right? If he's changed his mind on certain things, that's a good sign, especially if it's
Yeah.
positive what he's changed. So you're still hanging on to this past person. If you were him and you'd gone through all the things that he's gone through in the last 8 years, I would hope that you would have radically changed on certain things. And then that same person will admit, right? The people who say this, who criticize him for some turnabouts, will also turn around and verify that in the last 8 to 10 years, the whole planet has gone through major 180-degree changes in terms of conspiratorial knowledge, paranormal knowledge, asking deeper questions, and uncovering, say, more about the dangers of communism, whatever. It's a sweeping axiom now that people say we're more awakened. But one man can't do that. But you're contradictorily saying that, oh, well, yeah, people are more awake now than ever before. 10 years ago, you couldn't have talked about these things. Right. So in one breath, you're saying that something has changed and there's been a radical turnaround. But in the case of one man in 8 years, no, he's all lost. He's all over the place because he turned around some of his ideas. And then on top of that, his turnaround is positive. Where he is now on things like health and vaccinations and what have you is actually the way it should have been in the past. What kind of logic discredits a person for that? You see? So along with the good that's happened, the cherry on the top is that irrational people are being shown up as irrational. That's a cherry
Right.
on the top.
Right.
And the most important cherry there is the left. I love what's happening, but I love even more the fact that these nitwits, remember I've said many, many times through the years, keep the cameras rolling. Whenever you have irrational, frenetic, histrionic lunatics running wild, these whack jobs, just keep the cameras rolling. They are the worst advertisement for themselves. That's George Orwell's quote. What do you see now? Because that has been done and is still being done, my greatest dream has come true. That these people have shown themselves up now, that anyone with a modicum of sanity can see what you're dealing with. Whereas before it still might have been concealed, and before you might have given some concessions to these libtards. Now it's not happening. Now there's an astrological tie-in, this is a Plutonic thing. But the fact that woke is dead in America, I have to pinch myself. I can't believe it, right? Now, what this means, because it means it's something that's happening in government, but it affects you on the street. You no longer have to lower your eyes. You no longer have to put your tail between your legs when you deal with one of these creatures, even if it's just at the coffee shop or whatever. No, or at work. Look at the reign of terror that they ran. Now you can look them right in the eye, say what you want when you want, and there's nothing they can do about it. That is golden. That right there. To hell with you, Portland. To hell with you, Seattle and California. Right? It's all over. We've seen what you've been like. We've seen what you've done when the power was even slightly put into your hands. We've seen the reign of terror. Terror, not just on the contemporary people, but on the past, on statues, on paintings, on the American history. The seething hatred of these venomous snakes. You see? But again, coming back to the whole point, on the street, you can now look them in the eye and go, oh, no. Haven't you? Where have you been? Woke is dead. You can't pull that shit on me anymore. And now you can turn back and be like America was. We can look them in the eye and go, no, don't pull that shit on me. And you can do it to anybody. I love that. That's true freedom, right? They did it to us. We saw how venomous they were. And now we can not have to take it anymore. It's very plutonic. And to me, it's it's one of the positive aspects of this plutonic energy of cleansing and criticism and lack of tolerance. They believed in, what is it? The intolerant tolerance, right?
Yeah.
All these Marcusean nonsense. Yeah. We've learned from them. Thank you very much. We've learned from you. And now that's why we can be ruthless when we have to, sort of turn on them again. If they pull it, be always cordial to everyone. But if they try to pull some of this woke shit, you don't have to take it, not by any means.
It's amazing you opened with that point, because it's funny. You can now skip through all of he did this, said this, but then now did this, and then who's behind this. Like, you can just skip all that and say to anybody that's blackpilled about the man and what's going on, look at the reaction, look at the mask slipping on the ideologues of this cult that took over the culture, right? Like, the mask is slipping because of what Trump has done. So that alone is an amazing moment in history, let alone just in a moment in American history. This is like history of the West, history of the world. It's turning it on its head, and all the right people are screaming about this. And I mean, the people that are probably involved in some things that we're going to find out more about as all this new operation to expose the bad government spending, the corruption that's gone on in the Department of Justice and the FBI and the CIA, in the NIH, in the health. Like, it's, when I sit there listing all of the victories that are at hand, it can't even fit it all in one sentence. There's so many. Like, you have to like break it into sections. That's how much has happened. And we're not even a few months in yet to what's going on. And so this is a signal of a change, not just in America, but in the entire culture of all of the West. Like, look at all the European leaders freaking out right now, having all these like emergency G20 summit meetings and like, what are we going to do? Because they want to keep war going. This is another thing that I don't care what people think about Trump's rhetoric or anything, or mean tweets or whatever. You got to think the guy is actually trying to stop these wars from happening. And he's very committed to doing it. I don't know if you got to catch his speech last night, but it was absolutely one of the best political speeches I've seen, and one of the best moments I've watched, and one of the biggest signs, as you're talking about it. Do you see that they had to kick out some of those Democrats, trying to hee-haw him from the side and cackle him from the side? And there's some guys that were there live that are doing shows right now as we speak, covering the fact that they're like, I was sitting in the audience. It was almost impossible to hear Trump over all the screeching and yelling and interrupting. And they're holding up signs. All these Democrats, they're just freaking out while the guy's talking about how to end the wars, how to fix the government spending, how to solve these problems, these issues with the cartels and these young kids that were murdered viciously by illegal migrants coming over, and how he was, creating pet or animal sanctuaries in the name of that one young girl who was brutally raped and murdered by these absolute animals that shouldn't have been in the country, and were allowed to come in on the country by the people that were there shouting down what Trump was saying and trying to interrupt them. And what does it do? Like you said, the cameras were rolling. The cameras were rolling. And I think that's actually something that the average conservative commentator, even the guys that support Trump, they miss about him. And my argument is, has anybody ever read his book, Art of the Deal? You have to actually read the book, and you'll see this. He wrote this book, what, in the 90s or even earlier? And you got to see the strategy that he employed in business to actually highlight and put out the incompetent people in the business in front, in the spotlight, to demonstrate to everybody else on the board or in the company what a damage this is. And then that guy undoes himself on camera. And then Trump, all he has to do is usher him onto the stage and go, hey, go ahead and say what you want to say. And then he does all the damage himself. He's been doing this in business for years, which is why I think that when he went in on his first term, he, first of all, was handcuffed going in there. I think a lot of lessons were learned because he didn't really know who to trust. But I think there was another dynamic where what he seems to do is thrust these people up in the spotlight, let America absorb the message, and then it comes back around later by its own nature, right? He doesn't even have to be the one to do it, because if he does it directly, the media is just going to take him apart, right? And now it's a different time, because now even the media, none of that shit works. They go on these big crybaby festivals or whatever every time he says something, and their ratings plummet more. They go more woke, boom, they go more broke. Hollywood tries to do what is it, the awards ceremonies, at record level drop in attendance for that. Trump goes up and does a speech talking about the end of woke, absolutely numbers that they've never seen before in American political history. So what does that tell you? It's unbelievable what we're witnessing. Oh, I think you're muted, Michael.
I think your volume went down just a wee bit.
But
you're absolutely right. Yeah, you got it. Keep the cameras rolling. They're the worst advertisement for themselves. And it was so needed because people were still giving these people concession. They were still sort of half listening to these whack jobs right up until a very recent time, where you would have thought they would have been done and dusted years ago. But we found out they weren't. That's why this Biden came back. So, yeah, it's a great sign that his speech in the Congress and then these hecklers, absolutely fantastic. Keep doing it, because you showed not only America but the whole world what you're dealing with, and that can create a ripple effect. Talking of black pillars, you see, look at this moron David Icke. This guy is just unbelievable, right? In missing the boat.
It's sad to see. It really is.
Yeah, people email me all the time, about it. But the thing is, you see, you got to remember that he's ultra left wing himself. He was a Jeremy Corbyn major supporter. He was a leader of the Green Party, which is these eco crazy people, right? The eco deal people, environmentalists that Trump is fighting. And he's also deeply anti-Semitic. He's tried to back off on some of these things, but ultimately, no, the petticoats still show. And when Donald Trump arrived, and I'm just using him as an example here, Ike, this is what happens. You start to get the mask coming down of a lot of people. And actually, there's a whole litany of people within this movement who've shown their true faces. And I'm glad of that, see, because I've known for years what they're like. But the public didn't, and now they are. So there's a litany of these people who are fuming at the Trump administration and what's happening, when they should actually be overjoyed with what's taking place. And we have remarked before on previous programs that some of these leftists and even liberals have now, because of the world moving around them and under their feet, found themselves in bed with Palestine and with Hamas. Remember, we've mentioned this, and we've known about it for years, right? The liberal, what's it called? The liberal fascism. But it's only in recent times, again, with this Plutonic energy really just coming into Aquarius, that this has occurred to most people. Now you're starting to hear it as a sort of a going axiom in Washington, where there's a couple of even bigwigs who now speak openly about this collusion between the left and militant Islam. You never heard that before. That came out of the conspiracy movement. Yeah, it never was public. So the same thing is happening now. These people haven't read the compass. They are not with the gig. And so just by standing still and in their dogma, the world has moved around them. The background has shifted and they're on a different stage, but they don't know it. They're still where they think they are. But now we get to see something about them that we never saw before. And I love that. This is all exposure. Because another person would say, hey, don't these guys know what they're doing? No, because you've always been awarding them greater dimension, as I've said, than you should have done. They're